1999 was a big year for movies, but arguably the most buzzed about movie was the Blair Witch Project. Or as it was known at the time as the, "Oh my god, I'm sorry I threw up in your theater" project. The setup for the Blair Witch Project is that some film students were shooting a documentary and were never seen again, and all that was found was their documentary footage. Is this movie fact or fiction? You decide. But actually, I saw the girl who plays Heather in like a bunch of Steak and Shake commercials, so... The movie begins with some backstory about the Blair Witch. They interview a lot of people in town, and we learn about certain aspects that will become the staples of the Blair Witch legend. We learn that the town of Burkittsville was formerly called Blair, a lot of children went missing in the 1940s, and local weirdo Rustin Parr was accused of 7 of those murders by placing one child in the corner while he killed the other one. There were people ritualistically murdered at Coffin Rock, and there were stick figures and rock piles. And honestly, the legend is really like 90% stick figures and rock piles when you get right down to it. You know, if you find footage from people that are missing and choose to exploit their deaths for monetary gain, please, for the love of God, edit out some of the less than stellar footage.
One whose evidence is all around us, etched in stone. They went into the woods prepared to find death. What they found was a desecration of humanity at the site which trappers have often referred to as Coffin Rock. Blood at the edges of the hemp indicate that this act had been committed while each was alive and able-bodied enough to struggle. That happened here, at Coffin Rock.
It's probably a good thing these people were never seen again because this documentary looks terrible. The Blair Witch Project is one of those movies that you either love or hate, and honestly, I understand where people are coming from on both sides of the spectrum. I love the Blair Witch Project because at the time it was a fresh new idea that didn't rely on jump scares, and it had a marketing campaign that reinforced the idea that what you were seeing was real. It could be intense and visceral and gritty and quote-unquote real. It also had a lot of scenes where you had no idea what the you were supposed to be looking at. Like a lot. The Blair Witch Project definitely could be described as a slow burn. It built up the tension incrementally over the course of 7 days. So the first night is pretty uneventful. They heard some cackling in the middle of the night, and they found a dead mouse and 7 piles of rocks. I think the Blair Witch really likes to ease into this shit. And even though it's been only 1 day, they're already arguing over being lost. So they're still horribly lost, and they have to spend a second and a third night, and really not a whole lot happens in those nights either. Ooh, but we do get more rocks, though. And then we get the saga of the missing map.
Kick that fucking map into the creek yesterday. It was useless. I kicked that into the creek.
Now, I could see maybe balling it up and throwing it, but kicking a flat map seems really weird. I mean, seriously, just picture it. Like, have you ever tried to kick a piece of paper? You look like a freaking idiot. And if you tried to kick a map that was on the ground, what's most likely gonna happen is that you're just gonna slip on it and you're gonna tear your ACL. That's why I don't believe Michael's story here at all. I think he went to go take a poop, wiped his butt with it, and then panicked when he realized what happened. I mean, he is the new guy in the group, so the teasing would have just been unbearable. And honestly, I'm the same way. I would rather we all die horribly than admit that I did something stupid.
Do you realize? Not to you, but I do what the f***
Whoa! Alright, let's turn that way down. Good God. So tensions are already pretty high when they find stick figures hanging everywhere. Now, I know you're scared, but it's important to keep your dignity.
I want you to kick the map in the creek either.
Help! Please help us! Help us!
Or just freak out and scream for help. But honestly, I would have been doing that 2 days ago, so who am I to judge? So they have to spend a 4th night in the woods, and since at this point they don't know quite what they're dealing with, they decide to not light a fire so as not to attract ghosts or hillbillies. And honestly, I would rather take my chances with a murderous ghost than hill people who are jacked up on meth and Mountain Dew. So they wake up in the middle of the night to weird noises and... What is that? Are those little kid voices?
Oh, Jesus.
That. Nope. Nope. Fuck that too. If I was one of these actors, they would have so much unusable footage because I would have just been shrieking and sobbing and just be in a complete panic. Just like pathetic whimpering the whole time.
Go, f***ing go! Oh, God! God! Hurry up!
Yes, I would be like that, but like even in the daytime scenes. Like if I was one of those actors, I would be straight up sprinting while doing that thing when your hands are flailing above you when you run up the basement stairs because you just know a ghost is trying to touch you. And you're just kind of making that sound. It is the least dignified thing ever, and I do it every single time. So they wake up the next morning to find that Josh is missing. The movie helps you remember that his name is Josh because it is screamed non-stop for the final 20 minutes.
Josh! 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 Josh!
Josh! Josh!
Josh!
Josh? Josh?
So spirits are pretty low for the 2 surviving members, and they have to spend a 6th night. So in the middle of the night, they hear Josh yelling in the distance. You know, this movie won an Oscar for Best Lighting, which I thought was pretty well deserved.
It's all full of blood.
So they wake up to a bundle of sticks with blood and teeth and scraps of Josh, and it's at this point that you should just try to get to the highest point you can and just jump to your death because the Blair Witch is through f***ing around.
I am so sorry for everything that has happened.
Remember when every movie and TV show parodied this? That was a fun few years. The only one that gets a pass is The Office because doing a Blair Witch parody 10 years after the fact is the most Michael Scott thing ever.
I am so scared when people don't label their personal food.
So they hear Josh calling for help and they run after him and they come upon Rustin Parr's house, even though the townsfolk burned it down soon after they discovered what he had done. And this helps reinforce the idea that Heather and the gang have traveled back in time, and that's why they can't find their car or really any kind of civilization whatsoever. So they go inside and they see little kid handprints all over the wall. And anyone who's ever given a bag of Cheetos to a small child knows the struggle. Mike goes down to the basement, and I'm sorry, but he's known Josh for like a week, and he just charges down into a creepy-ass basement to go look for him. I've got family members that I wouldn't do that for. And that's it. End credits. No cheesy witch costume, no bullshit CGI. And some people lost their damn minds when the movie ended like this. You have to remember that the time period when the Blair Witch Project came out would not be considered a golden age for horror movies. I mean, the majority of horror movies from that time period were cast with actors that you would usually find on the cover of Teen Beat. Was Teen Beat still a thing then? Was Teen Beat ever a thing? That was the name of a magazine, right? Or was it Tiger Beat? Tiger Beat magazine? That sounds weird, but it also sounds like it might be right. Teen Bop? Was that ever a magazine? Teen Tiger Beat? What was it?